Yeah, yeah.
We are the epitome of Black female love.
It's
Yeah.
easy for us as Black women to hold up the banner and the calls for everyone else. But again, who holds up the banner and the calls for us? What role does the church play in all of this stuff?
Is that we as a Black church are perpetuating the same behavior as a patriarchal evangelicals have been
That's
doing.
right. And guess
Church. But it's the sisters in the congregation.
But it's a lot of times it is the Black women who bring us down more, or push or try to silence our voices more in the Black church.
Hold on.
Hello, 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 my sisters. Hello, our viewing audience. Chalice, it is good to see you back from, I think I saw one picture you had red snapper in your hand. Y'all are having a very good time. So it's good to see that you got some rest and relaxation and return. So it's good to see you.
It's good to be back, I guess, right out of the vacation right into the frying pan. Like, oh, okay.
You know what? You're built for this. So we're not even worried about it. You can handle it.
Yes, Lord. I guess I
Hello.
can.
Hello, Renee Thompson Jones. Thank you for viewing with us on today. Sharon Mitchell, I'm so good to have you. I believe you're coming out of Michigan. Hello, JF Perry out of Texas. Hello, Karen. Hello, let us know, our viewing audience, let us know that you're here and where it is that you're listening from. Dr. Wright, how are you on this day?
I'm doing well, but I'm a little frustrated that you felt it was necessary to, or that Chalice felt it was necessary to send me some heat from Texas. 91 all week long. Was that necessary?
I haven't been in I've been in Texas in a couple of weeks.
You sent it. You sent it from your city.
Or dot in and dot out, right?
And it's hot.
Texas one day and
yes, it's hot. But hey, my mom used to say hell is hotter, so no need in complaining, right? We are good here in Kansas City. Grateful. No complaints on our end.
Hello, Sheila Taylor. Hello, Melvin out of South Carolina. Dr. Wallace, how are you?
Well, I am doing well. I'm in between not complaining and trying to get ready for the CME missionary conference and following vacation after that to go visit my sister in the great state of, well, let me just say, in the state of Texas in southern.
Oh, wow. So you're headed to the heat. Wow.
Yeah.
So you're going to go from one hot spot to another.
And in Texas. I'm so cold. You can see I got on a jacket. It's cold outside. Cold.
Wow. Well, you all, our viewing audience, we thank you all for hanging in with us on this year with our season in 20, what we kind of like to say, the top half of our season as we get ready to close out our time together. We thank you all for just being loyal and always sending people our way. We're grateful for that. Do ask you all, as Dr. Wallace says, she gets ready to travel at the end of the month. Dr. Bradford has just finished traveling. You all keep me and you all keep me and my team that's traveling with me in prayer as we get ready to head over to East Africa. Nate's and not quite a little over a week, but next week this time we'll all be gathering here to fly out, headed to Ethiopia, be there. And then to Rwanda. And so you all keep us covered in your prayer. As in your prayers, as we do that, we're excited about what God is about to do.
Oh, bless the people. Bless the people. Since everybody's taking all these vacations, I think I'll just go to the Bahamas for a few weeks.
Go ahead, girl. Enjoy it. Especially especially in July, since our broadcast is kind of on the, we have a break. Let's say it like that. We have a break.
Oh yes, yes. We're only going to do 7 days though.
That's I am angry with myself for only scheduling a long weekend going to Belize. When I realized that, I was so pissed I didn't know what to do. letting my daughter and other folks handle the vacation schedule. And I get there and I've got to turn around and come right back. I was angry.
Yeah. You didn't think that one. You didn't think that one through too well.
No, I didn't look at what until it was time to go.
And don't you know it's about the caregiver taking care as well?
Yeah, Lord.
Oh, you forgot you were going.
I was sharing with Wallace. I said, maybe it was Burns. I've been traveling almost every week since January.
Yeah.
And yes. And I'm going to travel this week, right out of vacation. Travel, but God is good. And what is it? We're built for this. God has something great in store for all of us. And our yes is yes. And when we do what God has called us to do, it's not a burden. It's a blessing.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I can agree with that.
Yeah, it's not a burden, it's a blessing. So thank God that I'll say this publicly. Thank God that we all have 3 sisters to help us and strengthen us and encourage us to go forward. We may not always be on, but we're always on with each other. So I'm grateful for this platform. I'm grateful that God allowed us to have this platform, and that you, our viewers, are here to support and not only give us support, but really push us to do more for the Lord. So we are excited for what God is doing. So keep coming as we go on break, and as God refreshes us, God will refresh you and do what we need to do. Amen.
Amen.
Alice, you missed last week. I had to come off of the broadcast to do a holy dance and forgot that I had a sciatica hurt, but the Lord allowed me to do my holy dance without pain. And last week, I tell you.
Thank you, Lord.
I was blessed.
Thank you, Lord.
All right, we have our guest that is backstage, and so let me go ahead and introduce him to us. On last week, I had the pleasure of sharing with y'all. I had my brother with me that was from another mother, and I feel like this again on today. Dr. Kevin Washington is an African-centered psychologist, licensed in Florida and Washington, D.C. He's also a percussionist and a priest of Imani Temple. And he has taught and lectured at several colleges nationally and internationally. He is a past president of the Association of Black Psychologists and is currently associate professor and head of at Grambling State University. And the national program director is also the national program director of Black Marriage Day, president of Black Mental Health. Master's founder and CEO of Roots Africa, and board member and vice president of the World Health Mental Health Coalition. As a Fulbright Hays Scholar, he's researched the impact of socializing institutions on the healing or restructuring of apartheid South Africa. And it was in South Africa where he researched Ubuntu, and how it can inform mental health service delivery to people of African ancestry and others. Not only does he work on healing the psycho-spiritual wounds that are present within people as a result of cultural and historical trauma, he continues in developing healing paradigms for persons of African ancestry who have been impacted by persistent enslavement systemic trauma, PEST. This work is critical to his advancing of Ubuntu psychology and psychotherapy. He is the founder of Ubuntu Psychotherapy. And as the founder of this, he advances a culturally sensitive modality for mental health counseling and psychotherapy for Black men and boys as well as Black and African families. And so, without further ado, ready to present this heavyweight, my brother from another mother, Dr. Washington. Hello, my brother.
Hey, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
How are you, Dr. Washington? Good to see you.
Real, righteous, and relevant. I'm hearing all this travel, and it's like it is a
real
wonderful
righteous
thing.
and relevant. I like it.
Hello, Doc. How are you?
Hey, what's going on, kinfolk? Decatur way is greater.
You're right about it. You're right about it. You're right about it.
I want to start here with you. I know that you had just gotten back from Gambia. Tell us a little bit about that before we jump into all of our African American issues.
Hey, it was fantastic. As a matter of fact, this shirt was a gift. I said, let me wear my gift to remind me to have the conversation, which is amazing, right? Because the gift came from the head of security at this hotel that's there, and he tells us how much money he makes per year. But no matter what happens, this brother always finds a way to go to a tailor and have the tailor make myself and my wife something every year. He's always gifted something from us. But the point is that's the power of the love that we have for one another, that no matter what, we will extend ourselves on behalf of someone else. This is somebody that, of course, I met a few years ago, and now no matter where I went, he made sure that everybody knows this is Dr. Kevin. So whenever he comes, this is Karamo. So when Karamo comes through here, and so every time I move, it was saluted and all kinds of stuff, and it's all because of love, heavy stuff. And so when I tell you that that was the pathway that continued not only in the hotel, but we went to Jufere, where the lineage of Kunta Kinte is, whether the narrative is a narrative, a myth, or a truth. The lineage is in this place, and the queen of that space, the chief, the queen mother, has bestowed upon us a responsibility to do some work. And she says, in return for your work, here is your land. And I'm like, where do you walk in and just say that, hey, I'm willing to assist and support, and then this is given to us, the issue of right and responsibility. And so those things kept happening, and a security guard, a police officer, joined up with us. And so she moved around. She's 20 something, no matter what happened. So my point is that life is wonderful. And we keep saying a lot of things about what we don't have and what we don't know. And the reality is that we have options, and God is opening doors everywhere, but we have to be willing to take the step and do the unthinkable. And so that's the revolution of the mind. We have to be able to do the unthinkable, because if we can stop to think about what we've been called to do, we won't do it. Because again, we read in the Bible all the time, right? My ways are not your ways, right? My thoughts are so far off. So if we keep thinking our thoughts, we will never do the great things, right? And so it's just a matter of saying the power of yes. The power of yes. Right?
Lord, that's a further extension from our last week. This is right on the heels of an amazing show last week, and I am grateful that you are just following in that line. The power of yes, my Lord. That's powerful in itself.
Because we quick with it, what we can't do, and that's because of a narrative that we received even as children, right? We tell our children, oh, you can't do that. You're not big enough. You're not tall enough. Well, how about show me what I can do? That's what our African proverb says, that when a child has a knife, give them a stick. And the idea is that don't just take things away, give me another option. Right. And too often we are so busy in the context of debilitating one another because of our own fears, our own doubts, and our own worries. And those things kill us. So people die faster from what's eating them than from what they're eating. And our anger, our anxiety, our emotions, those things are tearing us up from the inside because of lessons. But the point I was making is that going to that space, the Gambia, and never was on my radar, but just saying, yes, I'll go. And what opened up. And so one of the names that I received in the community, the chief, Queen Mother Takotau, gave me a name in a ritual, in a ceremony, and the name is Karamo Naso, and I got it last year, and so it's the name of her son. So I know where I got the name, because of her son, and she named me as another one of her sons. I got it. But then this year, when I began to unpack deeply, because I guess I was in a different state of awareness, they said, let me tell you what karamo means. And I kept getting this. It means one who studies, one who's a scholar, one who's learning, that you send your children to sit and learn from a karamo. And I'm like, this is unbelievable, because this is the work that we've been doing. I've been an instructor, I've been a teacher, all these things. And so what we have to recognize is that when we move in the power of yes, we operate in the alignment with the divine, right? And so the divine has us in alignment. So we have to recognize that we are on a divine assignment. So the yes was submitted to the divine assignment. And then we have the elevation that comes out of that. And so many times we can't get anywhere because we're stuck in our own thinking, and we don't understand that God has a bigger plan for us, and we have to be able to step in to that. And that's the idea of walking on water. So are we water walkers is the real issue.
Wow. Are we water walkers?
Wow. Dr. Washington, as you were talking about the children and not telling them what they can't do, but telling them how to do it differently, or even replacing or presenting them something. One of the books that I had read, Post-Traumatic Slavery
Syndrome.
The syndrome, yes, talked about a situation that happened in a store, and a Black woman, the woman said that she observed a white child moving around and doing things and touching things, and the parent would say, come back, but didn't basically intervene, whereby the Black mother entreated her child differently. And she was saying that because of the trauma of slavery, that our response is different, because we think in terms of a punishment or a negative response that's going to come to that child being adventurous. And so it's still, that some people still operate in fear, that generational fear. And it's really a powerful thing, because you hear it all the time. No, you won't be able to do that, or you can't do that, or instead of saying that we can.
Are you
right? You are so on point. I just wanted to interject. Because I don't want to interfere with the women in time of wisdom, because if you end up in the wrong spot, you end up in trouble. So I'm not going to interfere, but I will, by extension, will suggest that two things there. One is that Diaz and Resler showed us in a research study that we can that mice pass down trauma in epigenetic research, and showed that, of course, when a mouse was given this whiff of orange blossom and then shocked, they begin to associate the orange blossom smell with the shock, so they would have a visceral response to that shock. To that smell. These mice would have pups that would have the whiff of the orange blossom but no shock. Their bodies have a visceral response. Those pups would grow up and they would have their own pups who would also have the same response to the smell but no shock. And so it shows that there's this idea of transmission of content, of how to adjust, how to live, how to navigate through trauma. So what we have to recognize is that we not only have been traumatized, but we have the capacity to be able to adapt. And the question becomes, what is that divine intelligence that's given us insight as to how to navigate the trauma? See, too many times we get stuck on the trauma, but not deal with the issue of the divine voice. It tells us how to navigate the thing. And so that's one of the reasons why we suggest that when Dr. Joy DeGruy was coming up with the concept, she and I spoke about it when she was coming up with the issue of a post-traumatic slave syndrome. And I said that we cannot have a post because we are perpetually in the process of being traumatized. See, post means that you've gone through it. And so that's why we call it persistent enslavement systemic trauma. It means it's something that is ongoing. It's based on the ideology of enslavement, which deals with the white supremacist notion. It is systemic. It is in everything that we do. Every time we make a move, it's there. Whether we talk about, I won't go ad nauseum there. And it is traumatizing, not the issue of the shock, but the issue of the disruption to our spirit and our soul. And so once we recognize that it's ongoing, if you wake up to tomorrow and you hear about another shooting of a Black man, if you hear about a strangulation of a Black woman, it's the same thing warmed over. Ahmaud Arbery, Sandra Bland, we go ad nauseum. Michael Brown. So we don't have post. Even if a parent, Black parent, is telling their child how to navigate when you're out there in the world and you're driving around, put your hands on the steering wheel, they stop by the police. That's not post, that's trauma right then.
Mhm.
You were traumatizing right now. And then it had a whole campaign by United Church saying that just make it home safe. Where do people who live in a free society, highest order of command to their children is to make it home safe? What is that? That's not free. That's traumatizing. When I have to think about what name I give my child, because my child has a certain name, they may not be able to get a certain job someplace. That's not free. That's traumatized. With the clothes I wear, traumatized. The way I speak, traumatized. The way I do my hair, my skin, my eye color. That is perpetual trauma going on and on and on. And so we have to be clear then that we're not in a post moment. So we keep using European nomenclature to define African phenomena. No, we're perpetually in some shiggity every single day. And the question becomes, how do we navigate it? That is, the divine voice within is always telling us how to get through.
But Doc, if I might just let you elaborate a little bit further on the black on black, because of the trauma, I think we in today's society see a lot of black on black trauma and perpetuated. So is that also a part of the enslaved phenomenon?
2 points there. That's a really good one, right? 2 points there. One is that no matter where we find ourselves, the first entity that we will hurt is the one that's closest to us. So it doesn't matter what the phenomenon is, whether we have whites in the same areas, white on white crime, Asian on Asian crime, because that's the first thing to swing and hit, or to touch, the bump. So if I'm leaving my neighborhood, my neighbor to neighbor. If I'm driving my car, the first opportunity to bump a car is my neighbor. So that lingua franca that we use for that oftentimes is misappropriated at some level. But the second point I want to make is that Dr. Nobles reminds us of the making of a sheepdog, and he says that you take a dog when it is a pup and put it at the breast of a sheep, and it grows up thinking that it's a sheep. And so it will use all of its dog instincts when it is older to protect the safety and safety of the sheep. Even when you put another dog in the pen with it, it will attack and kill it. If you put his own mother in the pen with it, biological mother, it will attack and kill her because it has grown up thinking that it's something that it is not. But the worst part of the whole thing to me is that when you put a mirror in front of that particular dog, it will attack its own image, because its image is its problem. And so the issue is that when we talk about the making of a sheep, making of someone who becomes so accustomed to something else, that we have to recognize that we've been made to suckle at the breast of something that is really not our true mother.
Mama.
Right? And so we believe it is us. All right. And so I'll give you a classic, because the idea was talking at some level about Juneteenth, but Frederick Douglass reminds, he says to the slave is 4th of July. And what he was asking, the fundamental question was, why would an individual celebrate the victory of his oppressor to further oppress him when he has his own rituals to observe, right? And so the issue is that when we begin to move from the breast of the alien and begin to go back to within, who are we? What is it that we have? When do we tell our narrative? So then we can begin to show Black love, right? We have to tell our children what it is to love about who you are. They learn the lesson about their hair being nappy. My dad used to comb my hair and just say, your hair's nappy. Who's your pappy? You some ugly child. Now, did he mean it in a bad way? He meant it in a comical way. But the narrative that was passed on through that was that something about me was distasteful, and he disowned me in the process, right? So we have that, but do we give our children things to love? Europeans give their children things to love. That's why you can grow up, the narrative that Dr. Joy DeGruy talked about, navigating the grocery store, because you learn about your ancestors being great and wonderful, even if they were wrong, dead wrong. The school still named Robert E. Lee in this country, and it's still named for Grant. All these folks not Grant, other folks, everybody that lost in the South, they still have schools named for them, right? So they celebrate themselves. When and where do we celebrate the greatness of who we are? When we recognize in the world, right? We look in the world, everything in this space right now that is good in the United States, that is powerful, it's been created by Black ingenuity, divinely inspired by God. from a traffic light to a computer to the internet to the cell phone to the gear shift in the car to the convertible top to the 3D glasses to we can go ad nauseum. The microphone I'm speaking on was invented by a Black man. GPS system, the security system inside of a house, how to sweep a house, a broom, how to make ice cream, how to make a potato chip. Wait a minute, everything I just named came from the genius of Black folks. And we divinely inspired to be able to keep honoring somebody else, right? Giving the colonel the rights to the fried chicken. We honoring somebody else,
Right.
rather than honoring the power of God within. We have to do a better job of showing our children what there is to love about themselves.
Yes.
To
Yes.
tell them the story of the narratives of our divine ancestry every single day. And that one we don't do. We can start with Big Mama. We can start with Mud Did. We can start with Pawpaw. We can start with them and what they were able to do alone, right? And then go out from there. But we don't do that. We spend more time honoring someone else. Well, you know, if I'm going to make it in this world, I got to do it this way. Wait a minute, you telling me I'm great and wonderful, but the only way to make it, I got to succumb to someone else. It is not biblically written that a man cannot serve two gods. Wait a minute, who is God in the situation?
Mine.
If it is then the white man's world, then where is God in the process?
Mine.
And so we have to recognize that the message that we're sending to our children is that to despise and to hate that which is Black. Therefore, when I see you, I see something to despise and to hate. So don't be surprised when I pull out a gun and say, bam, you're dead. Because you remind me of what I've been taught to hate, but have you taught me to stop and love who I really am?
The more you talk, the more I thought about the police in Memphis. Not just our teens and people in our community, but the system that has taught us to hate each other.
Well, you know, one of the classic examples, and I love movies, but it was quite graphic. My son told me he wanted me to watch a movie called Django, and when Samuel L. Jackson got beat up at the end, well, I was celebrating because I was about tired of him.
I get you. I got it. I'll be too, girlfriend.
Yes.
There were so many rich stories in that particular movie alone, even though it was one of those hypothets. For me, the most comical part of the entire movie was when they put on the doggone mask, the hoods. You know, can't see out of this doggone thing. Right. And, you know, and then if you really listen to the narrative, you have to ask yourself who thought of that, because it really was a dumb idea. Right? And yet these are people that we're looking at. And you know, so, well, you know, it's their world. Do you see how dumb they? I mean, really, I can't see out of these holes. Well, I can't see. Well, he can't see. But can the horse see? That's all that matters. Like, wow. You know, it's like that. And I did an excellent job of really showing how dumb a population is, right? And so, and this is not clinically dumb. It's like unintelligent, uninformed, doing stuff, and yet we're spending our time trying to figure out how to humble ourselves to that. No, stop. The genius was in the person who figured out how to navigate that environment. And to come out, and the fact that he was going after someone he loved, right? That's a deep narrative.
Yeah.
Come hell or high water. And so Django taught a whole lot, even when he came in on the horse, and he look at the horse he has, right? They were hating on the man's horse, but then how Samuel Jackson's character was taught and trained that the way to make it is to get with your oppressor, because that's how you're going to make it. No. I think that's the way for destruction, because again, it is clearly written that we cannot serve two gods, and that's where it gets tough. And that's the idea of the reality revolution, right? The idea of the first part of this is the attack on woke, right? The reason why there's an attack on woke is because woke speaks to consciousness of self, right? The revolution is a revolution of your mind to begin to think differently, and recognize this, that the power of the word woke is in the English language. It is a past participle, right? Which means then that it is incorrect, grammatically incorrect to say that stay woke. It would be stay awakened. However, it doesn't fit into the African cosmological perspective to be stay awakened, because I don't need to stay awakened. I need to stay woke. Why? Because woke implies a past participle in the present about the future. Examine the process very deeply. It says that I need you to be aware of something that could happen in the future. Thus, stay woke in the present based on what has already happened in the past. It's why is it grounded? It says that we know that we are both, we're not only present, but we're also past and we are future, right? So so for African, wherever it's not, we're not in the here and now. That we are the amalgamation of those that have gone before us. So we acknowledge those that made it possible for us to stand. That's why we even name our children after somebody that came before us, a grandmother, grandfather, somebody. Always say they look just like, you don't like this, reborn all over again, right? That's our story, because we recognize that it is a recapitulation of the same thing. The essence is there, and then we're doing it for the future to make sure that things are better. You cannot convince me that my ancestors sat down and couldn't wait for guts to come out of a pig to make them chitlins, right? Because that's not something that you sit down and wait for, but it's saying that I will do the most distasteful thing. I will take these intestines, clean them out, and make them something, because I know that somebody is coming behind me. The power of stay woke is there. See, the idea of African worldview says that it is not only instructive, that tells you what to do right now, but it's also prescriptive, how to live. And then it gives you this idea of understanding. It describes a phenomena in the now. That is heavy. So when we listen to our proverbs, so stay woke is instructive, it is descriptive, and it is prescriptive. And that's heavy. So we hear our proverbs and so forth all the time, and the old folks say stuff. It's like, what do they mean? And they always say, what? Just keep living, right? You will know by and by. They're saying that there's something in this that you have to understand later, and the real issue is to understand that the attack on woke is an attack on essence. Last point here is that we understand in psychology that to get information, the content inside, you have to have encoding, storage, and retrieval. That is, that the data has to be put into you. It is then encoded to be able to make sense of it, and then you retrieve it and apply it to something later on in life. If one can block the encoding process, that is, if one can ban books and ban conversation, and ban intellect, and ban that kind of stuff, then they're also interfering with the encoding process, which means that there's nothing to store and you get nothing to retrieve but what they told you to retrieve. Right. But when you recognize that the war on woke is not about necessarily the person, because they don't know the content, they know the process, that if a person gets corrective content about who they are, their power, their prowess, the encoding, that what they stored then is about how to walk and move in the world. So when it's time to deliver, they drop it like it's hot. The point is that we have to recognize that that's how we are to function. But we get so caught into the wrong stuff, and this is why we talk about the reality of revolution. That when our ancestors speak, we have to understand how to listen. We keep praying. I said I was going to stop. I'm done, really. We're always praying and asking and begging, right? Oh, show up in my life. You know, one thing, Dr. Burns, I cannot stand it for somebody to call me and ask me to help them to move, and they hadn't packed a single box yet. Hold on. You haven't packed a single box, and you asked me to help you to move. No, you didn't. You asked me, you want me to help you pack and move. And here's the problem with that is that, to me, all your stuff is junk. So I need to figure out what you think is good stuff. You know what I'm saying? Because to me, all my stuff is good stuff, and to you is junk. So we have to be clear about this process. So we keep asking and begging, oh, show up in my life and show me and call on God, call on this, call on everybody. And we haven't even gotten prepared for the journey yet. Get yourself prepared, get your mind right, right? We have to understand how to get into an alignment for the divine assignment. And we're so busy asking and begging. Don't call me, you ain't ready to move. Yeah, we got to stop calling and begging folks to come on down and show up over my life. The question is, what have you done? You calling me and you ain't not packed yet? Come on, Slick. And packing comes in the context of what is it that we put in our minds to be able to live better and to do better, right? What is it that we're doing for ourselves? You can't folks want to take vitamins without eating food. I want to be clear about the whole process. You can't you take some vitamins on an empty stomach, you're gonna have a real problem. I want to be clear, because of what the vitamins do is facilitate the process of allowing the food to be able to be utilized differently. My point is that we can't get the divine essence and blessings from God, and we haven't taken in the stuff that we need to be able to receive it, to be able to use it properly, to be able to advance ourselves in life.
Oh, Lord have mercy. Doc, you know, you just said a whole lot, and I know we got to get to the questions, but right now, I'm how, since books are being banned and our current educational system for our young people is this public education, how do we move all of the information from critical race theory to African history to how we were able to survive in the worst of circumstances in this country? Can we move all of that into our church environment and maybe bring back some of those young people who are just disenfranchised with the church?
I love that part about bringing the young people back to disenfranchised, Lord. So, because I work with young folks all the time, and so I hear their voices and I hear what they're disenfranchised with, disenchanted with. And then what's so funny to me about the latter question is that in my office at Grambling, a lot of the students will gather, come in and talk about a variety of things, and then I have a faculty administration saying that, well, our offices can't be hangout spots. Wait a minute, listen. Do you think I want everybody in my office at one time? I got things I want to do too, right? So you know, if you had an opening conversation with somebody, maybe they come visit you, and I wouldn't have so many in my office, right? So they'd be spread out all over campus. But because you know you can't, nobody want to talk to you, you mad anyway. So the reality is that we have to be able to really listen to what they're saying, but at the same time be instructive in a way that is constructive, not the issue of being punitive, right? Mm-hmm. And so I'm trying to understand this every time I talk about students badly, and it come back to the office. I got students that get Fs and they just still hang out like, what are you doing? Like, I probably wouldn't hang around the professor, but it's just like, but I know that what you get, the F you gave me was the corrective F. Right, because they know that it's coming out of love, right? So students show up with pants sagging and slippers and all kind of stuff, and I just talk about them, and then they come to the office. They're the main ones who hang out. Why? Because I love them enough to say, you got to do better because you are better. Right? Yeah. So we have to be. That brings people back, not telling them what they're not and what they can't be, and not giving them the same old passive theology. We got to stop giving the folks the slave theology. They know slave food when they hear it. People know that, and nobody. We don't have time to hear about just pray. That's, you know, Dr. Burns. How are we gonna keep telling the same thing about took my black soul and dipped it in red blood and it came out white? Come on, man. Wait a minute. Come on. Do you not
that ain't even the text. That's not even the Hebrew.
right. That part too. That part. Right. So that's part of the indoctrination. Right, that somehow white is a symbol of purity and greatness. For our ancestors, white was a symbol of the ancestors, and we give reverence to them, and so we align ourselves accordingly. So we have to check out theology. But the first part of your question is about if they're banning the content. That tells you a lot about the enemy. That tells you about the enemy understands who we are. And there's a Chinese proverb that says that one who knows not himself, not his enemy, will be defeated every single time. And so they're very clear on the content, because they're very clear on our content and our context. And so they know what has been done to us. And if you think about it, if I've hit you with every blow I have and you just sitting there looking at me, I am now intimidated ultimately. And so they have hit us with all types of blows, left and right, rape, sodomizing, removal, castrating. And yet we're still sitting right here looking, saying, look, creating, doing more stuff. Doing a no-look pass, slam dunking. We hitting golf balls. We're knocking tennis balls across the net. We're doing surgery. We're creating all this stuff. So it's like I've hit you with everything I have, and you still here, right? And so we have to be clear about that part. So they're telling us a lot about that. So we have to do the work. The work is, do we know the content inside the books that are being banned? right? Have we done the reading? Have we done the studying? Right? And that's the part right there. You know,
that's the problem.
I don't
There's
have
the
time
problem.
for that. You don't have time to do what? That's what draws
there's the
that
problem.
draws the students in right there. It's Doc, you said this in class. Now tell me more about that. When they come in and say, now what do you mean by that? Well, here's this. Well, here's a book. You want me to read it? Yeah, read it. Let's talk about it. Right. So we have to do our studying. Oh, you know, I got to get out here. I got to work. I got to do this. No, you got to know so that you can share something. That's what I made my life about, is that how can I go talk to people, talk to young people, talk to people in the community, and I have nothing to talk to them about but the same old stuff. You know, you just get there and you work hard and you can be whatever. Okay, but now what?
Now
right?
what?
Now what is it? What are we drawing from? But when I start telling them about the context of the war of the revolution of 1811, when individuals came together, one of the biggest revolutions in this country, out of New Orleans, where they were able to create the context of upstir. This came out of a discussion that came from the conversation of the Haitian Revolution, and the question became from Napoleon: if these people can beat us at this in this manner, then there's no land that we should own, and therefore the Louisiana Purchase becomes a possibility, which increased the United States by it doubled the size of the United States. It's not tripled it, and it's called the greatest land acquisition in history. And why is that important to you as a Black person? Because it was the genius and the essence of God within Black people that made white people shudder in their boots. And that's why you end up with Juneteenth happening, because they were still concerned that if Africans were able to rise up and defeat organized armies of French and others in Haiti, a small island, then what else can they do any place else? And so then you have this conversation of Juneteenth. We get lost in the sauce. We get 1811. All these things have happened because of the power of the divine. And how did they defeat them in Haiti? They believed that the power of God was within. And they said that you cannot destroy God, therefore you cannot destroy us. And they said that no matter what we do, we kept hitting them. We kept shooting them, and they would be dead, and they would still keep coming for us. And they kept saying, "Oh, they're filled with voodoo." No, they were filled with the power of God, saying that God says I die. You don't determine when I die. And so that's the power that transformed the entire world. And so that's why it is Haiti is the first free African country, nation in this world, which is why they're having hell right now.
Right.
Because
America has done its best to penalize
That's
Haiti
right.
for having the audacity to want their freedom.
So what do you
My
think?
goodness.
What do you think the war on woke is? You will not have the audacity to see yourself as human. As long as you are in a B and a H, you good. We'll let you sing about that, nigga. We'll let you put a beat to it around. We talk to you all day long. But when you start speaking about your power and prowess, therein lies a problem. I cannot sing a single song about how I'm going to go out and kill a Becky, but I can kill an N all day long in a song.
Wow.
Right? Because there's an agenda there. And so we fall into that trap. But the moment I speak about power, about the prowess, well, that's hatred. And the sad part about it is that we got Negroes that jump on, well, it don't take all that. God loves all. I didn't say nothing about who God loves. I'm saying I'm speaking about the power of God's love up on me and people like me. How about that? Right? My mama cooked some good food. I'm not saying that she was the best cook, but it kept me alive. How about that? Let me just tell you that part. That has nothing to do with what your mother did in her kitchen. Right. And so so somehow they begin to think that because of that dichotomous thinking, that if I say I'm great and wonderful, then they're terrible. Well, they know their history. Look, it's not difficult. They put it on a postcard. They lynched and castrated people, gathered around, cut body parts up, and sell it and disseminate it across the face of that particular crowd. And people have stuff in jars right now, body parts from folks. They did Emmett Till, they did Rosewood. We can go ad nauseum that they did Tulsa. We don't have to make things up. It's real. And all Black folks did. Look at this. All they did was build a community in Tulsa, in Allentown, in New York, in Siena, and all those places. All they did was simply build. Lake Lanier is built on a Black community. All the folks did was simply exist and thrive, and they came in and started disrupting them. But yet, when I talk about the power and prowess of who I am,
because you cannot leave a legacy. You cannot leave history for yourself. You cannot do that. One of the things that that struck me the most when I had an opportunity to go to England, and I was sitting in one of the chapels, and I looked at how they were able to document their history, even to where the bodies are buried, right? For generations, for 4, 5, 6, 7, 800 years. And I can, even as I'm saying this to you now, I can see myself standing there saying, and this has been the intent of white persons who enslaved Black Americans, and now this present generation we're in, is that, where they're able to say, oh, we can go back generations, but then, because if we cannot say, well, who our big mama was, right? Then you've already disconnected us from a sense of what our humanity is, from the sense of who our being is. And so to see this attack that is happening and occurring now, I mean, just openly occurring on our literature, on our culture, anything that is positive for us, it is being openly attacked. And it's like, now, where are our churches now? We'll talk about God. Where are those voices? Where is it now? Because if you separate us from our generation, from who's behind us, then we have no value for the generation that's to come. I just love you, my brother. Go ahead.
Awesome.
What you speak to is what the Zulu call the power of Umzabezi. Umzabezi is ritual. And so according to the Zulu, they suggest that we can lose our connectivity, our power, which is called Abapanza Basifulutele, which is the withdrawal of ancestral protection due to not performing proper ritual. If I don't know ritual to even perform, right? If I'm disconnected from that, then detached from that, then I'm severed. Like you said, my power is being diminished, right? That's kryptonite. So we have to do proper ritual, and that's what I find is happening, Sister Wallace, with the internet. That people are still putting out information. So the more they ban stuff, the more they say here's what they want you to, here's what they don't want you to know. So it is actually running contrary to their intent. And so we have to do proper ritual. Abapanzi in Zulu means literally our soil, but it's actually the word for ancestor. One of the words for ancestor, the other word is amadlozi. But it means, Basiflatela means to pull back from. And we have to do proper ritual to maintain our connection. And our rituals must be meaningful. Right. And so that's the church as ritual that keeps us connected. Tell me what it is that I need to be connected to. Don't just keep talking about nothing but the blood of Jesus. I need to know something practical so that when I navigate this space, I understand. So how do we transform the narrative of Jesus, and one who is stepping into spaces and doing things? How we transform the narrative to talk about the parable of the seed to not symbolize as throwing seeds down, but the issue of minds who can receive. And some folks are hard-headed and can't nothing grow there. Some people got too much junk and trauma. It gets choked out. But there is some good grounds. And how do we get people to the good ground to be able to receive the seed that is coming to you? How we understand the idea of Yeshua means my salvation has come, and the idea of being born at a certain time of the year is symbolizing the idea of resurrection, or the answer to your problems coming, which is why we have Christmas that says that there's no room in the end. The end was not about a physical place. It was about our mind. The issue is that there's no room in the end for something that's coming to save your life, because you got too much junk and clutter inside of it, because you believe yourself to be inferior, less than, and so forth and so on. We have to begin to do ritual that clears all that junk out to be able to receive it. To receive, here is who you really are.
Wow.
When you said ritual, and I know we got to get to these questions, y'all. Please, you're gonna have to.
We dealing with the question. Go ahead, Wallace.
You're gonna have to come back.
Stick with the flow. Stick with the flow.
Because when I did a ritual for Burns in Texas, in Dallas, it was months upon months that Burns would call me and say, this was so meaningful. And I was having people connect their grief and their sorrows. and things that they had the traumas they had experienced. Write those traumas down, and we put them in an aluminum pan, poured frankincense and myrrh, and set fire. And as the smoke went up, we kept saying, "This, God, the smoke is going up, but we want you to pour out your spirit upon us." And that was only God. That was not Brenda. That was God ordained. I promise you. And that I'm finding, even when I did a ritual for mothers who lost babies to fetal demise as a chaplain, or as stillborn, when I did a ritual in their rooms, hallelujah, I didn't make that connection to just that second. It was so powerful. Just to anoint those babies, just to say, here's a certificate to mark that you had this baby.
Right.
It was
right.
I did not. Just now, I'm telling you, I just recognized the significance of that power.
Yes, man.
When you said ritual, that thing just got all over me.
Yeah. Yes. And a shade to that, because it was all that and more for our folk. All that.
And we have to create those spaces where we do rituals. Sometimes we think ritual is shouting, and that's a part of it. That's not the total aspect of ritual. We think the singing, we think the dancing. We are the most eloquent singers, and I'm a musician. So this is not a bash on any of that. I'm a musician. I've been moved. I was just Sunday. I was going someplace, and I was going to drum in this church, and I'm telling you, I had a back pain, and I heard the leader, and he popped the drum a certain way. I was outside, and it's like, okay, let me get ready to go join in. So I understand that, but so that is a part of it. However, after the singing, after the shouting, after the running around in circles, right? What is it that we're supposed to do? And so in the Gambia, man, they stop and they pray. It's a Islamic space, and they stop and pray, and then ask them, what are you praying for? What are you doing? What are you fasting for during Ramadan? Well, Muhammad says. I said, well, what do you do? What are you doing it for? And they cannot make the connections, right? We're not making connections with the shout. We're not making this connection with every time we do a shout and we are dancing, we move it in a counterclockwise manner. As the earth turns counterclockwise, it means something about something. We're not dealing with the issue of the spirit mounting someone and they're coming to show us that you're not here alone, that this came from another space, to say that there's more here going on than just the physical space. Remember that. I want you to remember me, so that you can call on me, so we can move forward and get things done. We don't recognize those things, that the voice, the shout, the singing. That's something to remind us of who we are in our presence, that is not only here, but is past and is present and is future at the same time. So we get caught into singing and shouting and praying, right? And then the Gambia folks are begging, give me something, give me something. I'm like, what do you mean to give you something when you have in your presence mangoes, and you have cashews, and you have eggplants, and you have peanuts, and you have watermelon, you have black eyed peas, you have okra. Okra actually is a word out of the Twi language, which means soul. You have all these things. And yet the Indians from India are harvesting the cashew nuts, and so that's who's making money off of that. And the cashew fruit is going away, because on the bottom of a cashew nut is a bell pepper like thing. On the bottom of it, that's a sweet fruit there, and so that's going away. Mangoes are just going to be wasted in this season. We could be making mango chips and juice and all kind of stuff, but we're not doing that. Peanut butter, peanuts all over the place. That they call them ground nuts, all over the place, right? The black eyed peas, they call them local beans. That's where they came from. And so $1 billion industry is there going to waste. Gambia has the average age is 17 years old. And for the entire continent of Africa, is 19 years old, the most youthful workforce on the face of the planet. They have over 109 days of sun. We can be harvesting sunlight for solar. Now, people think I'm bashing bashing Gambia. I know I'm not. I'm talking about us right here in the United States, right? We've
Yeah.
given the world everything. We've given rap music. We've given all this stuff. And yet we keep asking and begging somebody for something. Again, as I mentioned, the GPS machine, the home alarm, the cataract removal machine,
Everything.
the doggone clock, and yet we still are the poorest folk. There's something wrong. As a matter of fact, the question would begs to be asked right here and answered is that if there were no African people, what would Southern cooking look like, right? So there's no Southern cooking without Africa. Therefore, we need to rename the whole food process. Like, this is African food in America. It ain't even Southern cooking because you didn't bring no cooking. We know that because if we go to England, we know what the food tastes like. Yeah. So we have to understand the power of who we are. We keep renaming stuff as if we are embarrassed. How can we expect to be loved by the Creator when we don't love what the Creator created?
Oh,
all right. And so we spend a whole lot of space, as you mentioned, Dr. Wallace, in a zone of hatred. But we have to recognize that there's so much to love. So ritual. What ritual do we also celebrate, put up every single day, where we honor those in our family who stood up, who made a difference? How do we honor those? Because when our children see us honoring them, they will know how to honor us, which means we got to live our lives in a manner that is worthy of being honored.
Right.
Dr.
Washington,
I'm done. Eldership.
Dr. Washington, we got 2 good minutes left with you. 2 good minutes. Drop on us what you think we need to be dropped on us in these 2 minutes.
Lord have mercy.
So when we talk about the European ego-aggressive nature of our experience in this space, we have to understand, of course, Akufa Kwabantu, which means the metaphysical illness of a people. And you mentioned earlier, Dr. Wallace, the idea of black on black hatred. We have to understand, of course, the role that the Ma'afa played in enslavement, the spirit injury that took place, the severing of cultural structures, the severing of ties with our legacy, social political disenfranchisement. All these things have taken place, and that the healing comes in the context of understanding 3 things we have to do. We have to achieve spiritual alignment, live within our African normalization. I keep talking about the issue of understanding that everybody has a place under the sun. That doesn't mean that that's a whole other conversation, but attain African authentic, self-authentication. We live in a space of identity theft. And so we are fraudulent in our existence, right? And so we have to do ritual that gets us into alignment, celebrate our family, celebrate our life, celebrate ourselves, set up an altar and a shrine in your space. People have done it in the years and didn't know it. But they had the picture on the mantle with a candle and had some family moment. Be intentional about it and honor those that have gone before you that made it possible. I honor my dad every single day for everything that he did, the several jobs he worked to make sure that we were here. I honor my grandmother and so forth and so on with a truck patch. I honor all of those people because not only do we have ritual of pain, we have rituals of victory and celebration. And when we do that, we can rise up and be more divine.
Wow. Repeat them 3 things one more time, just real quick. Those 3 things that up front. I didn't write them down, and I should have had my pen ready.
We must, first of all, achieve spiritual alignment. That is operating within alignment of the divine creator. Stop trying to do our own thing. When a car's out of alignment, it's always going in the wrong direction. That's just the best I can put that. So the idea of spiritual alignment, live within our African renormalization, the psychological wholeness. What does it mean to be us outside of the context of being defined by being traumatized? Attain African self-authentication, the idea of an integrated identity, and not move in the context of identity theft, right? So who are we authentically? Because we create the facade all day long. And you can have high self-esteem in a lie, right? If I put on blue contacts in my eyes and say, these look good, don't they? I have a high self-esteem, but it's not my eye color, right? So the issue is, how do we become more authentic? Because the creator knew what the creator wanted when the creator created what the creator created. And we trying to outdo the creator. Stop that. Just say, God, what is it that you have me to do? Rise up in that. And that's how we can ascend to highest possibility. The gazelle and the zebra run very differently. And so the gazelle, the zebra want to hop like the gazelle, get away from the lion, but the stripes on the zebra protects it. And so when the zebra started bouncing like the gazelle, guess what happened to the zebra? It got eaten up. We have to be clear that God has given us a way to move and maneuver in the world. And we keep trying to hop like somebody else. That ain't my job.
Powerful.
Wow. Thank you, Dr. Washington. Hang around backstage for us, please. Y'all in the viewing audience. If you want this guest to come back, come on, put it in the chat. Say. Oh, you got to come back. You got to come back. You got to come back. Audience, thank you all for hanging in there with us. We are now on our break. You'll see we'll have a couple of replays that are coming this summer. But until then, we look forward to seeing you back after Labor Day. All right. God bless. Take care. And until we see you again, take it. Bye-bye.